Imagine if bacteria spread where no antibiotic is effective anymore. Then many people die, similar to the Middle Ages. A bacterial terror is supposed to come.
In 2018, Heiko Schöning warned the public about a planned pandemic for 2020, an eerily accurate prediction. Now he issues a new warning, a planned pandemic for 2025. But unlike 2020, this time a truly deadly disease may be unleashed upon the world. Watch and decide for yourself.
What is coming and being planned is something similar to what we experienced with corona, with viruses. Something is being prepared that will have bacteria as the main focus. And it is at least as large a criminal plan as what we experienced with corona. It is absolutely to be taken seriously because exactly 5 years ago, in December 2018, I publicly warned that this stage pandemic would come and was planned for 2020, and exactly the people and also the factories that were supposed to produce the whole thing, I had named them. And now we have it, that such an armament, you might call it, is happening again. It's like arming before a world war. Like before the Second World War, maybe tanks were produced. Proteins produced by bacteria are being produced today. And huge factories are currently being built for this purpose. And the truly dangerous thing is that the directors of these factories are people from criminal circles, from intelligence services, and also mafia connections. The bacterial proteins are the new tanks. The target is not the fields outside, like the battlefields outside, as we had. The target is the surfaces, the fields inside ourselves. It's particularly about the intestines. We know that bacteria can indeed cause illness, even deadly illness. And what actually causes illness? These are protein substances that bacteria produce. These are proteins or also toxins, also called poisons. And today you can genetically engineer exactly these bacterial toxins. And today factories are being set up that can replicate exactly these bacterial toxins, these bacterial proteins, and introduce them into food. The range of bacteria used is really very large, and it doesn't make much sense today to name too many, because there are really so many that can be used there. It's much more important to see that now indeed such large factories are being built that can produce exactly such bioweapons and in massive quantities. And when I say in large quantities, I'm talking about orders of magnitude affecting millions and even billions of people. A bacterial terror is supposed to come. The actual toxins are produced in plants today. That means genetically modified, fast-growing plants have been altered. First and foremost are tobacco plants, but also tomato plants and even lettuce plants. And these lettuce plants, tomato plants, they can produce proteins of bacteria that make people truly seriously ill. And now you can do two things with it. You can harvest the plants and can extract these toxins, so to speak, and then you have tons of poisons. That's one thing. The other thing that can be done is, of course, to introduce it into the food chain, into sales. It's a bit more difficult with tobacco, but lettuce and tomatoes and also other plants made with this technology can be included in daily food.
Now, I would be interested, maybe briefly summarized, what is the official story? So, what are we told if you would officially investigate here with the tobacco plants, with the tomato plants, and what do you suspect behind it?
Yes, there's a long history. One that I had already specifically named in earlier years was the research on tobacco plants. With the cover story, we are making vaccines from them. This is also possible with cannabis and even with lettuce. With this, we can produce vaccines much faster and much cheaper for billions of people. The whole thing was already sponsored by the Pentagon, the US Department of Defense, for example, in 2012. A name I have often mentioned in this context is Dr. Richard Tapp, a board member of a tobacco corporation. One can also directly prove other crimes committed by this person. So with this person, I clearly showed in my first book, this is not a benefactor, this is a malefactor, this is even a criminal. It is important to understand that we are not dealing with benefactors here, but we are dealing with proven criminals. And I have also detailed in my new book exactly who these people are, because one can demonstrate crimes by these networks and thus say, wait a minute, if now criminals set up such quasi-armament factories on a billion-dollar scale, you have to say, that's threatening, and what are they planning? Officially, it's only for our health, so health research. Officially, it's about, for example, as I just said, producing vaccines. Much faster, much more, much cheaper. And it is also about, and this is now the new thing, also to produce substances that are against bacteria, that is antibiotics, or because they are not true classic antibiotics, so-called antimicrobial agents.
And there you suspect that it brings nothing good. So the official side is good for the body, for health, but you fear a bioweapons attack.
Correct. And exactly such a biological attack under a false flag is being planned. So if you imagine the scenario, what comes first? Then the first thing it will say is, oh, now many people have gotten sick from bacteria, from killer bacteria, through bacteria that are now so severe as we have never seen before. There are many possibilities if you approach it systematically. And there's either the possibility of claiming it was intentional, for example, terrorists. These could be green terrorists who want to reduce the world population. You could blame Russia or North Korea or China, all those things. So, deliberate terror or accidental. And there are also very specific exercises that have been conducted, just like we had with Corona, with Event 201, like we had with Anthrax, with Dark Winter. There are now new exercises for the new bacteria as well. I have described the main exercise in detail in my book. To put it briefly, it is said to be thawed bacteria from the South Pole or the North Pole.
Because it is getting warmer, human-caused global warming fits wonderfully into the new WHO concept of One Health, where it is about the Earth getting warmer and new diseases or old new diseases, thawed bacteria returning.
Exactly. And that's really included in these scenarios. And once again, the same institutions and even some of the same people are sitting at the table, as with Corona and with Anthrax.
Who is behind the production or the planning? As you say, you mentioned you can prove who is planning it and where and when.
Yes, the main company is called National Resilience, and one of its directors comes directly from the CIA. His name is Christopher Darby, and there are many other directors who also have a crime and mafia background. When you look at it, not just in individual cases, but all the connections, you have so much that you actually have to say, wait a minute, it can't possibly be about health if the people really come from the military, intelligence services, and the mafia. And this is truly the opportunity for us to spread all this evidence as quickly as possible this time, so that we can best stop or at least weaken this crime planning. Because now is the chance to say, we already know who, we know how, it's printed, it's there, and they can't just change these factories, like I said, like tank factories, these protein factories. That's the big advantage.
But what is being produced in the factories? Are those the bacteria we need to be afraid of, or is it already the antidote or the solution?
It's both. If you look closely at what they are doing, they can produce both. And on a scale that makes no sense at all compared to what was needed before, you just have to say, it makes no sense. Why are you investing billions into these things that humanity has never needed? You have to see that with common sense, so to speak. And they can simply produce both there. On one hand, actual attack bacteria, there are some of those, and also these bacterial toxins, in other words, attack toxins, which can then be spread in food, but also in other ways. And you can also build the antidote, and for that, they are also setting up the capacity, so that one can now say, after a bacterial attack, we become ill. What helps now? Antibiotics help with bacteria. This is known. Bioweapons have now been developed that are resistant to most antibiotics, or even all of them. These are the so-called multi-resistant germs, and nothing helps anymore. And now imagine if bacteria spread where no antibiotic is effective anymore. Then many people die, similar to the Middle Ages. And then there is a call for rescue. What could the rescue be? And the rescue that is now being prepared, and this is a very important keyword, is called antimicrobial agents. Not antibiotics, but antimicrobial agents.
So you believe that a bacteria panic is approaching us where actually many people will die, which would also mean that people fall back into an absolute panic. And we don't believe that a new edition of COVID-19 in 2024 or 2025 would still catch on, because this topic is probably over for now. But if, of course, something new comes where people actually die, and it's not just the media claiming it, but you know people to whom that happens, then panic will arise and people will naturally turn in fear to those they hope have a solution. That is the state. That is the pharmaceutical companies. And they will then bring out such remedies.
Correct, they will supply such remedies. And that is what needs to be understood. I have brought something here. Our intestines look a bit like this with this structure. They are not completely flat like a football field, but it has such villi. The intestine is about 400 square meters large, like a football field. The human intestine has such a large surface area because of these villi, and many different bacteria, archaea, bacteriophages, and others grow on it. These are the helpful and good things, which keep us alive. If there's a bacteria panic now, and when testing happens again, everyone is at risk, then it may lead to everyone being told they must take an antibiotic or these new antimicrobial agents. So a similar scenario as we had it, where it was said, we now have a new coronavirus, and now everyone must take the antidote, the vaccine. And so it is planned that one must then take antibiotics or antimicrobial agents. And when you do that, just as we typically know from antibiotics, these agents kill most bacteria. Then initially it will be like we only have a few bacteria left that are growing. It's basically a clear cut at first. And this clear cutting is totally unhealthy. We need new bacteria again, which rebuild everything afterwards. And now it's really perfidious that these bacterial toxins that have been produced inhibit many other bacteria, so that hardly any new natural bacteria grow anymore.
Like a field that was previously sprayed with seed poison.
Correct. And exactly such poisons are then spread, and we have a situation where these helpful bacteria can hardly grow anymore. And now we have a problem again. And now we have to, once again, ask the question, what is the solution? And the second remedy is not the antimicrobial agents, but the second remedy is probiotics, genetically engineered bacteria, so a recolonization, a rebuilding, so that we get something new again, but not as nice and colorful as before, only uniform, just like this uniform gray. And since nothing new grows, you're now in a dependency because you constantly have to take the new probiotics. They then create new problems, new diseases, and we have this cycle within itself.
Can you predict a time frame for when you believe it will actually get serious here? Could it be within the next few months, or do you think there is still more lead time to prepare for it?
Yes, that's difficult to say, but overall, and I am in contact with many international researchers and educators, it is likely that before spring 2025, no big panic will occur. So not like spring 2020, where people suddenly say there is a new disease and many people are dying. That will probably not happen until the earliest spring 2025. And that's just over a year from now.
How should individuals behave with this bioweapons attack involving bacteria? As you describe it, things could actually become dangerous. How should individuals behave in this moment?
It is very important to know the perpetrators and also the institutions, because even companies like Danone or Nestlé, health companies that one might usually have in the shopping cart daily with probiotics, might no longer be trusted because they ultimately belong to the same large corporations, the same large banks. And you need to know who is behind it, how these structures actually work. And that is precisely described in Game Over 1. And now again, specifically on its own, in Game Over 2. And we can actually only do it through education, so that we get a different situation now. So that people are not as surprised as they were in spring 2020. Oh, viruses, terror, wait a moment. And too few had seen this interview, or even fewer took it seriously. And now we have the great opportunity to say, we can spread this, we can inform people, but also very importantly, we can immediately inform the officials as well, document it, so that we can also deliver it to the representatives, to the heads of associations, medical associations, business associations, that we can really say to them, look here, this is happening, and if they spread it, the same production factories and the same people will definitely be behind it again. And then all we can say is, wait a minute, we're just not playing along anymore. We don't take these antibiotics, we don't take these antimicrobial things, and that will become a very big buzzword. AMR, antimicrobial resistance. So you also have to get used to these new terms and be familiar with them beforehand, because they have already incorporated them into legislation and even the WHO treaty. And that's why it's so important that these books finally now, in a timely manner, come out, that people also enter book sponsorships so we can deliver it documented to the officials, so that no one can say, like with Corona, I didn't know anything.
Since Dr. Schöning's warning was first published in 2023, key individuals have been replaced and company names have been changed, in apparent effort to obscure the criminal plan. For example, Rahul Singhvi was removed as CEO of National Resilience, and Integrated Biotherapeutics was rebranded as ABVAC. Yet the timeline for the new pandemic appears to remain on track. In 2024, the German newspaper Bild published an interview with Bill Gates, where, seemingly out of nowhere, he began discussing the microbiome. This carefully staged interview appears to be an early attempt to introduce the public to new terminology, preparing them for what's to come. If the self-proclaimed elites succeed in their plan to release highly lethal bacteria into the general population, the chilling depopulation forecast from Deagle.com may become reality. Deagle.com, an obscure online entity known for its extensive military data, published shocking depopulation projections between 2014 and 2020. According to these forecasts, by 2025, Germany's population would decline by 65.1%, the United States by 68.5%, and the United Kingdom by 77.1%. What sounds like a dystopian nightmare could soon become our grim reality. We must rise up to prevent this apocalyptic scenario. The self-proclaimed elite fear one thing above all: an informed public. The more we know, the less power they hold. Spread this information. Share this video with at least one person within your family or a close friend so that they are aware of what's coming. If you have connections in government or hold an influential position yourself, now is the time to act. Your life is on the line. We must defend ourselves. Watch the previous video to see Dr. Schöning's unsettling COVID-19 prediction. Seek the truth. Speak the truth.